What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ and Buck with you. Buck, what is going on, man? How are you doing? I missed you. I haven't seen you in a little bit.
No, it's been a minute, but no, I'm doing well, DJ. Like obviously, football is in full swing with the All-Star games. We finally know the participants of the Super Bowl and all that stuff. So just trying to wrap my arms around it.
Yeah, we're gonna have a fun segment today. We're gonna look at how these two Super Bowl teams were built. We'll reconvene early next week, and we'll have an opportunity to recap everything that took place from the two All-Star games we were at, and really start jumping and diving into the draft a little bit. We've got. By the way, when is the Bucky Brooks mock draft dropping here? You got to be getting close.
It already dropped.
Right at
I mean, I guess when Wednesday was the day. I don't know. It just drops. I know I found it. I know yours was up, and then you did your top 50, and then mine dropped or whatever. And so it's on. I got a top 5 coming up soon, but it's a lot of fun because I've been, as you, digging into these players, and there's a lot to like. There's a lot to like about this class. Really excited to talk about it.
I've been under a rock here in Mobile, just, cranking through all these practices and then trying to get stuff watched in the morning and then in the evening. Buck, I'm not going to lie to you. I've had the same, I don't know who the sponsors are for our workplace, so I won't say the name of the sandwich shop, but Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night.
Oh, I'm very
fall
familiar.
Back into the old scouting habits, man.
Yeah, I'm very familiar. I know exactly the place you're talking about, the sandwich shop on the corner.
Yeah.
Right beside. Yep. I know. In fact, I've seen you there when I used to go down there. That we'd be there all the time, because
cold,
it's
man.
easy.
It's a little cold. It's like there's some maybe a little better food, a little longer dinner, but that's a cold walk. And I'm like, I'm tired. I've just cranked through 2 practices.
Yeah,
I want to get back to my room, watch a little tape, and go to bed. So that's just my quick grab that thing, and then I'm back in the hotel. But man, I think I'm getting older, and maybe it's because I'm going to be a grandfather, Buck. I'm like, am I turning into this older curmudgeon who's not as social and just wants to go grab his little sandwich by himself and head back to the room?
I think that's where you're at. I think we're officially at that point.
Sad.
Oh, congratulations! You slid that past the goalie by being a granddad. Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
How about that? You
it's
do it all over
crazy,
again.
man. It's crazy, but we're excited as a family, so that'll be fun coming your way in August. So the football season starts, and I'm officially a very old human being. But today we're going to get a chance to dig into how these teams were built, and it's been interesting because before we jump into that, I want to get your take on this because I did one of these nights. I actually had I did enjoy a sandwich in this place with a buddy who's an executive with one of the better teams in the league. And I said, hey, what is your takeaway on, how, these teams are in the Super Bowl? Is there any league-wide takeaway that you see that will impact what goes on in free agency, the draft, and overall team building? And it was interesting about the fact that, these teams were aggressive in free agency. That was discussed, and that's not a no-no anymore. It's nothing to be ashamed about. If you're bold, go do it. And then some of the other nitty-gritty stuff was, the Seahawks have collected some tight ends that can really block. So having that advantage, having 2 guys at Saubert and then
AJ Barner.
Barner. Thank you, Barner. So having those 2 guys who can really, really block. I think that there's teams now, hey, we got to go find big physical guys like that that can really help us in the run game.
I think that's been the secret sauce. You earlier in the year identified how teams were using 13 personnel, particularly the Rams, to create advantages. And more teams started digging into the heavy personnel. We've seen a lot of teams use multiple tight ends to create it. And DJ, it's not only having multiple guys that can kind of be extensions of the running game and create mismatches in the passing game. But sometimes when you put all those guys on another side, you're creating extra gaps. No one talks about it being an unbalanced line, but technically it's an unbalanced line, and you have to properly line up or you get gutted in the run game. It's a way to create double teams, so people running duo where they're double teaming everyone on the front side, running power without pullers. It's a way to do it, and teams are taking advantage of the superior size against these light defenses that people were trotting out. So the tight end has been a major factor. And let's be honest, of late, the draft has given us some pretty good tight ends. We've seen some deep tight end classes the last few years, and it's only going to continue to go when we look at this class too.
Yeah, those were a couple of the takeaways there. But I want to jump in and really dive into how these teams were built and how they pulled this off. Elliott Wolf, someone you've known forever,
Mm-hmm.
doing a great job there with the New England Patriots. John Schneider, this is like the Bucky Bowl, man. John Schneider with Seattle, who you've had relationships forever. Those guys have done a fabulous job. So that's why, we wanted to kind of put this episode together and really kind of show how these teams were built. And that's what's going to get us to the workshop presented by Lowe's, an official sponsor of Super Bowl 60. So let's start right there. Let's start with Seattle. We were just mentioning them. And, you got John Schneider as the general manager, Mike McDonald, the head coach. The coordinators, you've got Kubiak and Dirty doing a really nice job there. Let's focus, first of all, on the draft just in this last year, and we'll look at the free agency in just this last year. Then we'll take some broader takeaways. But first-round pick, Gray Zabel, over 1,200 snaps, really solidified himself as one of the best young guards in the NFL. They come back in the second round. They get Nicky Manwari, who was, I believe, my 16th overall player. They get him in the second round. He's been their best defensive player in the playoffs. Then you kind of go through some of these other picks. You saw Torrey Horton in the fifth round make an impact earlier this year. He got over 200 snaps. Robbie Oots, playing some tight end fullback. He got over 200 snaps, did a nice job. So that's kind of from their draft class. You see a couple real impact guys there at the very top.
Yeah, I mean, like they just have been able to just get it done. And when you talk about teams wanting to be drafted and developed while also utilizing free agency, it's being able to do that. It's being able to weigh the pros and cons of attacking each class. And obviously, they have been able to lean into that successfully. And I think what is so great is when you see one vehicle give you a lot of fruitful players and then you complement that with the other, to me, it's talking about the entire operation really working together. And we've seen that in this example for sure.
Yeah. We've talked about this a little bit in the past. What's your philosophy on this thought? I've referenced it that, I don't know that you want to ever leave the first three picks in any draft without a big, whether or not it's an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman, but that's something I think you could add to. I don't think you ever get content, especially, when you're thinking about how this game is won or lost at the line of scrimmage. These teams have done that with high picks.
Look, man, we've talked about it. You've used the experience that you had in Philadelphia with Andy Reid and how they always made sure that they took one or two bigs within the first three rounds. To me, people always talk about being a line of scrimmage team or wanting to be a line of scrimmage team. You have to put, your money where your mouth is. If you say that, you got to commit resources to that. And you have to be able to consistently churn the roster by fortifying the line of scrimmage with bigs. And you can't give up on bigs if they don't pop right away. You just continue to add to that. And you hope to have good O-line and D-line coaches that can develop your guys. But your intention is to be the best line of scrimmage team that you can be on both sides of the ball. Because the one thing that we know, O-line and D-lines travel. And when you're loaded in the trenches, it gives you an opportunity to win in spite of what you have around it on the perimeter.
Well, you especially look at the Seattle group over the last few years. In 23, their first two picks were not bigs. They were skill guys, but Witherspoon and JSN, pretty darn good. And they followed that up with their third pick. So it keeps within that family, the third pick, Derek Hall, who's been a really good player for them on the edge along the line of scrimmage. Then you get to 24, Byron Murphy's their first overall pick. Obviously one of the best run stuffing defensive tackles in the NFL. Then Gray Zabel in this year, but they've continued to find impact guys, impact bigs within their first three picks over the last 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, like that has been a big part of it, but they've always kind of done that. You look at that line, like a homegrown offensive line that you have developed those guys over time. But yeah, recently you talk about adding pieces to that. And when I look at that defensive line with Byron Murphy, I think about them having Byron Murphy. I think about them having veterans around him that they've acquired via trade or free agency. They've allowed him to kind of grow into his role without putting all the pressure on him to having to be the guy right now. It's letting those guys slowly take on more responsibility when they're ready for it, as opposed to putting them into something that they're not ready for, despite their draft status.
Yeah, this offensive line, Charles Cross, first-round pick in 22, Gray Zabel, first-round pick in 25, hit on an undrafted free agent and Sundell at the center. Bradford has probably been their weak link on the offensive line. He was a fourth-round pick, but Abe Lucas, third-round pick for them, has been a really good right tackle. So it is a homegrown group there along that offensive line. It's done a really nice job of letting that group kind of grow together.
Yeah, and you love that, and you want to continue to see that. And we've talked about how the meshing of the talent that they have in the scheme. Rick Dennison, Clint Kubiak coming over and having a scheme that really has accentuated their strengths as players. But they've done it, man. They've talked about being a draft and develop team without just strictly holding themselves to that. But the bulk of their team, the core, and a lot of the reason why they're here is because what they've been able to do drafting, particularly down at the line of scrimmage.
Want to get over to the free agency side from this last year. Sam Darnold, 3 years, $100 million. What an incredible value that is with how he's played, over 1,100 snaps, Pro Bowl player. It was at his best when his best was required to get them into the Super Bowl. Cooper Kupp, 3 years, $45 million. Some big clutch catches there in the postseason. DeMarcus Lawrence has been awesome. 3 years, $45 million, very reasonable deal. Ernest Jones, 3 for $33. Jaron Reed, comes back 3 for $25, and then you get Josh Jobe, only $2 million for a guy who's going to start for you at corner. They did a really nice job there. They make the trade for Rashid Shaheed. We've talked about that a bunch. That was a 2026 4th and 5th round pick. Like, for the impact they've got from him, 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns, 1 punt return for touchdowns since joining Seattle. Some big plays in the passing game. He's been awesome. And then when you look at the trade they made in the offseason with DK Metcalf to the Steelers for a 2nd-round pick, that ended up being Nick Eamon-Wari, and the 7th-round pick ended up being Damon Martinez. But even if I just said, if you looked at DK Metcalf and the contract he was going to be signing, that money and his impact versus Nick Eamon-Wari in the minuscule amount of money he's making as a 2nd-round pick and the impact that he's provided, I mean, that is one heck of a trade.
Yeah, like one heck of a trade. And I just give them so much credit in terms of pulling the trigger and making it happen at a time where some people are slow and they want to hold on to all of their draft assets. They identified a need, and it is paid off a million times over. I mean, we've seen Rashid Shaheed, just what he has been able to do, not only as a returner, but what he's added to their offense on the perimeter. That's what you do these things for. Like, DJ, it reminds me almost in baseball, where baseball at the trade deadline, people gear up for the playoff run. And the Seattle Seahawks were able to do that. And just utilizing the trade vehicle, we talk about that. We go back a few years earlier, what they did with Leonard Williams. They are not afraid to pull the trigger when it comes to adding an asset that can help them become a better team in the immediate future.
And you look at this team, talk about the whole roster to kind of wrap up the Seahawks side of this thing. This is the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL, the number 3 rushing defense, number 1 on 3rd down, 5th in red zone, 2nd in yards per play. That's elite across the board. Then you flip it over to the offense. They're the number 3 scoring offense. They're tied for 5th in least sacks allowed. They're 8th in total offense, 8th in passing offense, 6th in yards per play. So, I mean, this is, in terms of the Super Bowl teams we've seen over the last few years, really the last decade, and Philly was like this last year. It was a very complete team, very balanced offense and defense. Same here with Seattle. This is I think it's the best constructed roster in the NFL.
Yeah, look, man, I haven't seen it up close and personal. Watching them when they came to Jacksonville, watching the team, and just how I would say, like, knowing John Snyder for a while, having been in those rooms and listened to how they talk about building teams, like, you could see, 1, it's a big physical team. 2, you could see the speed and explosiveness that they have at every level of their offense and defense. And then just the way the pieces of the puzzle fit together. And I'll say this because you lightly touched on the Sam Darnold thing. Man, you got to give them credit. They had a Pro Bowl quarterback in Geno Smith, but they felt like they could get better at the position, whether it's the production, the performance, but maybe the leadership and the chemistry and continuity amongst the team. They felt like they could get more out of their QB1. And Sam Darnold has certainly proven them right. The way that he's played, the way that the teammates talk about him. That was a big gamble, DJ. Like, people don't act like it was now, but that was a huge risk to move off of someone who had played well for you, to hand Sam Darnold a 3-year, $100 million contract. They did it, and that goes to their foresight in knowing exactly what they needed and man, just making it happen.
They use that phrase MOB, mission over BS, and they got guys in that building that are all pulling the rope in the same direction. Sam Darnold, when they talk about him as a football player, not a quarterback, which I think is an ultimate compliment, and how well he's beloved by his teammates. It was the same way in Minnesota. We saw it this year. Seattle guys won a heck of a lot of games and played big this year in big spots. It wasn't just that last Rams game. People forget the way he performed in the second Rams game, late in that game, or else that championship game is not played in Seattle.
Yes.
So that huge performance from him.
Yeah, huge performance from him. And I know we've talked about it, like everyone has kind of taken, I won't say the victory lap, but the staunchest supporters of Sam Darnold talked about this is what we saw from him at USC, and this is the version that we thought he could eventually get to. Now, he took the long, windy road to get there, but it speaks to the talent. But not only that, DJ, it speaks to the resilience. Most people can't bounce around and still have the wherewithal to find themselves as an elite player. Sam Darnold has gotten to the other side without harboring, I would say, the bitterness that can impact your play. I think that speaks volumes to the person, the character that he possesses, on top of the talent that he's been able to show between the lines.
You look at their key players and their ages. If they could get this done and win this Super Bowl, this might not be the last we've heard of this group. They might be able to make a nice little run here for the next few years. They are very well situated to go into the future and have a nice little run up there in Seattle. All right, Buck, let's get over to the Patriots. Let's start, first of all, with the leadership there. Elliott Wolf, again, someone you've been around since he was a kid, is the general manager. Mike Vrabel is the head coach. Josh McDaniels does an unbelievable job as the offensive coordinator. And Zach Kerr, am I saying that right? Last name, Kuhr.
I think so. We'll just go with it.
Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right.
And we'll apologize.
Yeah,
Apologize if it's wrong.
Don't want to be disrespectful. He's done a phenomenal job, especially in the playoffs. Let's look, first of all, at the draft from this last year and look at the play time and production they got into this group. Will Campbell, it hasn't been a great postseason ride for him, but has started at left tackle over 900 snaps, almost 1,000 snaps, 996. Travion Henderson gave him over 500 snaps in production. Kyle Williams, a receiver, over 400 snaps. You get Jared Wilson, who started for him, over 1,000 snaps. Craig Woodson, one of my favorites from the draft, the safety out of Cal, over 1,200 snaps. And you go on down the line, you see a bunch of other guys who've given them 200-plus snaps, including their kicker and Andy Borregales, who's done a nice job for him. And then a couple gems in the undrafted free agents with Elijah Ponder, who's given them over 500 snaps, and Chisholm III, an undrafted free agent, gave him almost 200 snaps. So that is a long list of productive rookie players, highlighted, I would say, by getting 2 offensive line starters and a real explosive, dynamic playmaker in Travion Henderson.
Yeah, look, I mean, they really knocked it out. Their left side of the line being rookies starting. And we can talk about the postseason and the challenges that Will Campbell has faced. But look, man, when you're a young player and you're playing in the playoffs, you just have to adapt to the playoff speed. And coming off an injury, you have to expect that there were going to be some struggles along the way. But their regular season performance, the way they've been able to get the young guys on the field and have them playing at a high level to support a second-year quarterback in Drake May, that is remarkable. And it not only speaks to the young guys that they brought in the draft, identifying what they needed, what they wanted, and putting them in position to succeed. But how about the experience of the coaching staff to be able to take the young guys and develop them? I don't know if you saw the clip that has gone viral where Josh McDaniels is talking to Drake May on the sideline, and he's talking about, Drake is like, man, this is hard. And Josh McDaniels is walking him through like, hey, but yeah, these are hard games, but it comes from a place of experience, having done this dance a few times to be able to do it. To me, I think that is why the young guys have exceeded, is because you have coaches that have either done it like Mike Vrabel did it as a player, or coaches who have done it as coaches multiple times, where they understand the process of getting to a championship level. And the guys have really bought into the plan and how they've been developed.
Yeah, to rely on so many young players, including a second-year quarterback, to be in the Super Bowl at this point in time in their roster build, it's pretty spectacular how they've been able to pull this whole thing together and do it so quickly. Let's look at what they did on the free agency side in this last year, because they spent a boatload of money, more than anybody else. Stephon Diggs, 3 for $69. Milton Williams has been awesome. 4 for $104 million coming over from Philly. He's in the Super Bowl for the second year in a row. Harold Landry got 3 for 43. Edge rusher Carlton Davis has played lights out. He's given him over 1,000 snaps, 3 for 54. Your buddy Kaylavon Chason looks like he's figured some things out. Just a 1-year, $5 million deal. Robert Spillane, when he's been out there, has been excellent. Just a little over, right at $11 million a year over 3 years. You go down through the list here. Morgan Moses has played really well, has been a stabilizing force for them at right tackle. Garrett Bradbury. How about Minnesota, man? Sam Darnold in the Super Bowl as the quarterback in Seattle. Garrett Bradbury in the Super Bowl as the center for the Patriots. Both let walk right out of the building there in Minnesota. And Mac Hollins, no shoes necessary, but 695 snaps for him. On a very affordable deal. But they invested a lot of money in free agency, and they picked not only the right players, I think more importantly, Buck, I think they picked the right people.
Yeah, DJ, I think that is a big part of it. I'll say this because a lot of times when teams have success, I tend to fall into the rabbit hole of looking at their docuseries to see how they build it. And so I've been watching the Patriots thing. It's like a 3-part docuseries on how they were built. And I think it was really interesting to hear them talk about the character part of the people that they wanted. Now, early, we knew during free agency, a lot of these guys were Mike Vrabel guys. He had some kind of connection with them, the Harold Landrys and some of the other guys that came on board because he knew them intimately. But then it's the other part of the veteran pieces. And we have talked about this. One, we talked about the best way to have success in the league when you're doing a rebuild is which side of the ball can we get to being great first? And they invested a lot of free agent capital in veterans on defense to try and get that defense up to an acceptable level. And I would say they've exceeded expectations being a top 5 defense. So they did that. But I heard Mike Vrabel talk about this, and I think this really matters. He said, I've learned that I can coach different personalities, but I can't coach different mentalities.
Great line.
When he said that, I was like, wow, that resonated. Hey, look, you can be whoever you need
Great
to be
line.
away from the field. But in between the lines, man, I need everybody to come to work with the same mentality. I need you to be tough. I need you to be a team first guy. I need you to be about the things that we talk about being very valuable in this building. And when he said that, I was like, wow, that is how you can take a Diggs and a Spillane and a Carlton Davis and put all these different personality types and get them going. And when I look at both of these teams, I think the lesson that everyone has to learn, man, the chemistry matters. People talk about culture eats scheme up, all that. But in both of these examples, DJ, based on what we know about these teams, it is really true. You get the right people, we can figure out the other stuff, but it's the right people that allow you to play at a championship level.
Absolutely. To me, I look at this Patriots team too, and I think, okay, you got a big time player in Milton Williams up front, but I look in the back end and I see the job that Carlton Davis has done since he came over. Woodson, we talked about as a rookie playing at a high level. You got a premier player, one of the top 3 or 4 corners in the NFL, Christian Gonzalez. And then Marcus Jones has been one of the best nickels. And I remember Belichick, we used to talk about remember when we've had this conversation, we've done these shows for so long. Everybody was front to back. And then all of a sudden, Belichick was one of the first ones who said, no, we're going to build it back to front.
Yeah, they didn't put a premium on that. So here's what's funny, right? They spent all this time moving off of the Patriots way and Bill Belichick, only to come back and go to the Super Bowl doing a new and improved version of the Patriot way. And I'm not saying that Mike Vrabel is Bill Belichick, but I will say is he has successfully taken what he learned as a player in New England and put it back into play. When I look at this team is the early 2000s Patriots. This is a team where the collective is better than the sum of all the individual parts. But when you see how they put the pieces together, how they're selfless and how they play, they are exactly what I saw dominate in the early 2000s. And to your point about the back end, the thing that the Patriots are able to do, and one of the things they were always able to do when they were really good, their ability to play multiple different coverages based on who they're playing. Some games it can be a man-to-man game, because we saw in the Denver game, when the weather shifted, they became sticky man-to-man, no layups, no easy things. There have been times where they played other teams, it's all zone. But the only way you do that, high IQ players who do the work away from it, so you can give them a lot of volume that allows you to be able to change and use different tools for different games.
Yeah, I talked, Buck, about the balance in the roster construction for Seattle. Man, it's sneaky when you look at it, because I would say Seattle, if we were to do what we've done in the past and draft the players off these two rosters and say we picked a random number like 30, I would guess we'd have 18, Seattle players, maybe 12 New England players. It's a gap that would favor the roster. But then I'm okay. You got Seattle scoring offense first, scoring defense third. New England scoring offense second, scoring defense fourth. This is another roster that's the top five in the league on both sides in terms of the most important stat, which is the scoreboard.
Yeah, and I think we all can say, and I felt like this, having like seen Mike Vrabel's Tennessee Titans teams against Jacksonville for years. I feel like he has always been able to squeeze out the most from the least. And whatever they don't have in talent, they make up for in tactics and strategy. And I've seen them bleed games. I've seen them understand situational football at a high level. Even though it didn't pay off in points, Drake May scrambling, taking the knee so they could get the field goal attempt off with 1 second left in the AFC Championship game, to me speaks to how they operate and how they understand situations. People are going to talk about this game, and we'll preview the game, and there's kind of like a buzz that the Seahawks are going to blow them out, and maybe they will. But I think this game is a lot more competitive than people give it credit, based on how, when we go through the rosters, you say like this and that, then you look at the numbers, like, man, I know people talk about the Patriots kind of backing in, but they beat three really good teams to get there. And when you look at the roster construction, all of the pieces fit. And we've talked about this. When you're building a team, you're not collecting talent, you're building the best team. And I think for both of these teams, the team really is well constructed.
Yeah, that is absolutely the case. Two teams that earned their way to the Super Bowl, and that was a fun way to look at it. How the rosters have been constructed and using the different ways to do it for both of those squads. All right, that was the workshop presented by Lowe's, an official sponsor of Super Bowl 60. We help, you save. Buck, that was fun. It was a fun episode, and I think it's helpful as we get into draft season and free agent season to see what plays. We always talk about what plays in terms of skill sets for players, and it's also interesting to see what plays in terms of how do you build out a roster.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. It's so fun. This is the fun part of it. Like, we always talk about like being able to study and then do the fun stuff. This is the fun stuff, seeing how teams are constructed.
No doubt. All right. Well, we will be back next week. We will have a chance to really dive in what we saw in these All-Star games. We're also going to have a chance to recap Buck's mock draft, as well as the top fives are going to be coming out soon. So we have a chance to jump in on that as well. Be sure to check out both those mock drafts. You can find them on NFL.com. My top 50s out there as well. You can check that out. So it's the end of the season, Buck, but yet it's the start of another one as we get towards the spring and what should be a really, really fun roster building phase of the offseason.
Yeah, that's the best part, putting it together, looking towards the draft.
Yeah, there you go. All right, that's going to do it for us, everybody. We appreciate you. We'll see you next time right here on Move the Sticks.